my son, our executive pastor, he said, Dad, I can remember the day you called me into your office and said, Daniel, I want to be more intentional with this, and it kind of all birthed right there. And it was, like I said, a few years before COVID. And we became more intentional with casting vision and communicating that vision, and how can we do it consistently, creatively, and with compassion. And so, yeah, we did. We said, okay, how do we pass down the culture? How do we pass down the vision?
Have you enjoyed listening to the Incredible Paul podcast? Are you looking for a way to support it? Or maybe you just want some swag? Check out the Incredible Paul store today. We have shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, stickers, and so much more. Go to incredipaul.org, INCREDI Paul.org, and click on the store link. Or go to the link in my socials bio and click on the Incredible Paul shop. Looking forward to seeing your Incredible Paul look.
Turn this up! Turn this up!
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferranbi, and welcome to Incredible Paul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having Pastor David Blunt, who is the founder and senior pastor of Church on the Rock in St. Peters, Missouri. He and his wife, Kim, pastor a church of thousands of members around the world. Pastor Blunt insights into God's Word challenge and inspire believers to grow in their relationship with God and their service to others. So, Pastor, I briefly introduced you. How about you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Well, as you said, we came to St. Peter's 40 years ago and met with 35 people in the St. Peter's Library and launched Church on the Rock. And so we've been here now for 40 years. Kim, my wife, and I, we've been married 50 years, and we have two wonderful sons. One is married. I think you interviewed him before, Daniel. And they've given me three great grandchildren, which is awesome. And that's a little bit about us, I guess. We came from Iowa. We grew up together, Kim and I, and it's been a wonderful journey so far.
That is absolutely amazing. The legacy of Church on the Rock for 40 years. 40 years is tremendous. I remember when my family first came back in 1998. So it's been about 25 years for my family, but you've been doing it for 15 years before that. It is absolutely remarkable. Church on the Rock has done amazing things. Looking back 40 years ago, is the vision for or picture you had for Church on the Rock, is it the same you had 40 years ago, or has it changed as far as what Church on the Rock looks like today?
Well, Paul, I would have to say this is the vision. This is the picture we had of 40 years ago. We had saw, when we were in college, we had saw a church in Minneapolis, and we said, wow, this is what we see us leading someday, a church like this. And I guess that kind of spawned the vision and the clarity. And yeah, so from the very beginning, this is what we envisioned, and it's been awesome to see it come to pass.
That is really incredible. You were able to have that picture 40 years ago and see it come to pass today, this year, celebrating 40 years, to see it come to fruition. Remarkable. You have a lot of ways you're able to interact with your congregation or people who are part of Church on the Rock, specifically with your members or volunteers, which from Sunday services to Wednesday services, different series, Kingdom Builder podcast, Leadership Lifter podcast, Backstage podcast. So how are you able to organize all these things? And what does that process look like for you?
Well, Paul, really, I have to give credit to the team around me. It's those incredible folks that I get to work with that make it possible, to have those different venues and different outreaches, because without teamwork, the dream work won't work, right? We've got to have that right team. And so I really give credit to all of them because without them, I couldn't do what we're doing, all these venues. I'm very thankful.
Teamwork makes the dream work. I love it. I definitely sense a lot of intentionality in the power phrases and the vision and mission behind a church on the rock. At what point, and maybe it always was going on with the staff and with your team, but I feel more so with the volunteers. I can definitely feel it more. At what point did you start to introduce or be more intentional casting that vision, mission, and those power phrases with the volunteers?
Boy, Paul, that is a great question because, really, that made all the difference for us as we were going through COVID. We actually, probably about 4 years, 3 years before COVID happened, we started being more intentional. Like you said, we did. After all those years, vision has always been big, dream has always been big, but seriously, Daniel even talks about it. My son, our executive pastor, he said, Dad, I can remember the day you called me into your office and said, Daniel, I want to be more intentional with this, and it kind of all birthed right there. And it was, like I said, a few years before COVID. And we did. We became more intentional with casting vision and communicating that vision and how can we do it consistently, creatively, and with compassion. And so, yeah, we did. We said, okay, how do we pass down the culture? How do we pass down the vision? And so, as you know, it's all over the walls and the hallways and the classrooms and the building and the campus. And those power phrases are part of that culture casting. Keeping it before our team and before the people is so important. So, yeah, it's interesting. You caught that, Paul. You saw that we have become more intentional doing that. It's made a big difference. Made a big difference.
Yes, I definitely agree, and I know that's something you teach us all the time, every week. Um, all everyone who's watching or listening, if you're not tapped into Church on the Rock or Pastor David Blunt, you're missing out. The gems and the nuggets of wisdom, you would pay thousands, if not tens of thousands, to get this every week. So I'm just thankful to be a part of the church and continue to grow and learn. It's phenomenal. So I just want to say thank you for that.
It's an honor, Paul. I appreciate you so much and what you're doing and having that attitude of a lifelong learner. Boy, that's important, isn't it? That mindset of growth. Who impressed you? Who impacted you? Have you always had a growth mindset?
That's a great question. I did not always have a growth mindset. I think looking back, the transformation happened for me while I was in college, like as a sophomore. So you talk about at Iowa and Ames, and so I went to school at Ames, Iowa, Iowa State. Uh, so got
Love it.
yeah,
Love it.
yeah. So I don't know if you kind of see the banner in the top up there,
Yeah.
Cyclones. Always representing what I can. But I think sophomore year was really where I had the transformation, as when I've been a believer my whole life, but then sophomore I kind of like um, beginning of college I kind of was not walking the walk, but sophomore year was really had the transformation as far as making a decision and rededicating my life to God and going after my growth in spiritual as well as the physical side and the mental side as well. So I would say who modeled that for me the best was probably my dad. So he's
Wow.
an engineer, but he also does a lot of stuff with emotional intelligence and project management. So he teaches a lot. So his background's been engineering, but now he's more so in the teaching and speaking realm. And so he always instilled in me, with me and all of my three younger siblings, about being a person of integrity, doing what you say you're going to do at all times. And so
Wow.
I would just say it was God that kind of brought me back to that my sophomore year. I was trying to think about full time employment, internships, all that stuff. So I was more intentional about. I wasn't reading as much because, just to be honest, when you're in college, you're reading a lot of other stuff, and that was the first thing I wanted to do. But I was more intentional about be going to conferences and being in the room of people who are growth minded.
Uh-huh. So how did you end up in Ames, Iowa at Iowa State? How did that happen?
So I ended up that it was actually the last place I applied to for college. I was not where I wanted to go. It wasn't my first choice. My family had, makes a long story short, my family had moved from St. Louis to Omaha, and I was trying to get closer to the St. Louis area. So I wanted, my first thought was go to Mizzou, University of Missouri Columbia, study engineering there. And I got accepted, got a scholarship, and then applied to Iowa State. I got a better scholarship, but still didn't want to go there. But I mean, 18. What do you know? You don't think about those things. But what really made the difference is I had an opportunity to do undergraduate research during the summer before school started. And it was also a paid opportunity. And I thought, well, that's a good opportunity to get to know the campus, meet people before the fall. And so that was really the deal breaker there, which you probably thought it should have been the fact that they were giving me more money from scholarship, that I didn't have to pay anything for tuition. But it was the fact that I had the opportunity to build relationships and learn about the school early on.
Uh-huh. Well, as you know, we were there in 1978 and 1979. That's where Daniel was born, my son, our executive, and we were youth pastors at a church there, and we had a campus ministry on the campus of Iowa State. We were two of the best years of our life. Two of the best years of our life. We loved Ames. We loved the university. We loved the church. Out of that youth group came a lot of full-time guys became full-time ministers. And we used to go down to the campus every Friday night and do street witnessing with our youth group and pass out track. This thing you weren't even thought about back then, Paul. They said, but I can connect with you on Iowa State. I have this has a warm spot.
Yes, yes, it's definitely grown on me, and I go back at least once a year to talk to
Yeah.
classes about my experiences in engineering and just to give back. And this is a lot of stuff I've done over the years with them. So God was definitely directing me where I needed to go. I know you also have a podcast, the Leadership Lifters, along with the Backstage podcast. But I wanted to dive into something you had talked about a couple weeks ago, as far as questions to ask a mentor, as far as how to grow and develop. And so I have a couple of them pulled up in front of me, and I just kind of to set the stage for the question, with 40 years of ministry, 50 years of marriage, and just life happening, how do you go about overcoming obstacles? 'Cause I'm sure some obstacles have come along the way.
Well, what a great question, Paul. And obstacles are a part of life, right? For all of us, we have obstacles, opportunities come our way every day. And it's so important how we respond. It
Mm,
happens to all of us. I can't really, what happens to me, I can't really change, but how I respond to it, I have control of that. And,
yes, yes,
we have a guest coming up in our marketplace ministry, Dan Gable, who
yeah,
was Olympian in 1972 wrestling, and then he was the most winningest college coach for wrestling in history. And he's going to be
yes.
with us in a couple of weeks. And his whole life, what really made him who he became in wrestling was tragedies that happened in his family.
Mm,
His sister actually got raped and murdered by a neighborhood boy in their neighborhood, and out of
wow.
that, came his um, mindset, of being a winner and that fighting
Mm.
mindset and rising up above obstacles. He's got an incredible story. Coach
Wow.
Dane Gable. I can't wait for him in a couple of weeks at our marketplace
I'm
ministry.
excited. Yes.
But I think, obstacles happen to all of us. They're part of life.
Hmm.
Ryan Holiday wrote the book Obstacle in the Way. Ryan
Hmm.
Holiday, Obstacle in the Way, which is a great book, great resource.
Yes.
And so they happen, but how I respond to it determines, if it develops me or if it defeats me. So
Mm.
perspective is everything. I talk about mentors. A mentor in my life, I asked years ago, I said, what's the key to success? And he said, one word, perspective. I didn't get
Mm.
it. I was about 35, 36 when he told me this. I said, perspective? Come on, give me 6 points, 7 laws, three
Yeah.
steps.
Why? Why?
Yeah. And he said, perspective is the key to success in life.
Mm.
And you know what? I've come to believe he's right. Is it an obstacle or an opportunity? And they come to all of us. I think, I think how we respond to it is how strong we are on the inside, how
Mm.
strong our spirit is, the strength of our spirit. I've got to throw a scripture in, Paul. In
Yes.
Proverbs 24:10, it says, in the day of adversity, if you faint, your strength is small. So the strength of my spirit and my mindset determines if I overcome the obstacle or if it overcomes me.
Wow. That that is remarkable. Just what you talk about with the perspective, and what you said, if you if it defeats you, or can you, well, either you it defeats you or you're able to go further and overcome it.
Yeah.
That is
Is it going to defeat me or develop me?
developed.
Is
That
it
was the
going to
word I was
destroy
looking
me
for.
or is it going to, prune me and polish me
Hmm.
for promotion in my life? You know,
That is.
Lee Cockrell, we had at our marketplace a few years ago, and he was the CEO of Disney World. Okay, he's retired now. And I asked him one time when he was here, I said, Lee, what was your hiring process for the top people around you? And he said, I wanted to know the adversities they went through and how they
Mm,
overcame them. He
wow.
said, that was more important to me. This is what Lee Cockrell said, former CEO of Disney World. He said, that was more important to me than their education. That was more
Mm,
important to me than anything else was I wanted to know the adversities that they went through and how they overcame them.
that is incredible. That out of everything that you could ask as far as interviewing, like your skills, what you've done in the past, but to focus in on how you're overcoming adversity. Because, like, as you mentioned, obstacles are going to come. It's a fact of life.
Yeah,
If you're not facing the obstacles, you ask the question, are you really living life to the fullest?
that's good.
Man, I love that. I love that. So going deeper into another question that you pose as far as what to ask mentors. So just taking a page out of your book is, what are your habits? How are you able to continue to grow and develop?
That's a great question, Paul. Really, habits, you've heard it, they make us or they break us.
Hmm.
Good habits or bad habits.
Hmm.
And, success is just a conglomerate of good habits, the right
Mm,
habits. So
wow.
I like to say what takes me from where I'm at to where I want to be is my habits. Somebody
Wow.
said, I like this. They said, your future is hidden in your daily routine.
Mm,
Your
that's good.
future is hidden in your daily routine. So, it's all about the process, isn't it? Even more than the goals,
Hmm.
because without the process, we can't achieve the goals. So once we set our goals, then we have to set in place the process that's going to take me to those goals.
Wow.
And I've got to enjoy the process. And so,
Yes.
like you said, that process is a part of those habits. And another resource that we had our staff read, and we just had, as you know, 12 interns for the summer from
Yes.
all over the country and Puerto Rico. I
Yeah.
gave them the book to read and do a report on was Atomic Habits. Atomic
Yes.
Habits as a great book on habits, how to get rid of bad ones, how to start
Mhm.
good ones, the power of a habit. I think that book is the best book I've ever read on habits.
Are you wondering what's next? Has everything you tried failed? Or maybe you just feel stuck? Then coaching might be right for you. The coaching relationship is a relationship totally centered on you. If you're tired of running on the hamster wheel of life and want to start to see results, reach out to Incredipaul for help. So what are you waiting for? Go to incredipaul.org/coaching, INCREDIPAUL.org/coaching, or at I am Incredipaul on all my socials. Or you can click the link in the bio for your free coaching session. I want to make sure you become the most incredible version of yourself. Yes. No, that book, I love that book. I know you've talked about that book a few times by James Clear. But I really like how it talks about the priming aspect of habits and really setting yourself up to make sure that you're doing the habits you want to do or not doing what you don't want to do as far as the replacement of habits as well. Because when you have a habit that you want to get rid of, you need to replace it with something else because that empty void gets filled with something. And it might be something you don't want. It might be worse off than the habit you had before.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
I love that. But speaking of books and resources, I know that you've written several books. And not only that, you have a new book coming out this fall. I'm really excited about God is for You. Can you tell us more about that book and what inspired you to write it?
Wow. Thank you, Paul. You know, my publisher uh, seriously has tried to get me to write this book for 20 years. We've been good friends for 40 years, my
Yeah.
publisher. And he's been trying to get me to write this book, and I just kept put it off, put it off. No, 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 no. And we've been working on it for a year.
Hmm.
And so about a year ago, I said I felt like it's time to do it, and it being a legacy book,
Mm,
and for it to come out with our 40-year anniversary at Church on the Rock at the same time.
awesome.
So we were intentional.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been, my theme these 40 years.
Mm,
40 years ago, seriously, the first few months with 35 people, I started a daily TV program, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Didn't know what I was getting myself into.
oh, wow.
It was on cable, so it wasn't real
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
And so, but I started way back then, Paul, at 39 years ago with the daily TV program. I'd always end it with, God is for you. So
Yes.
it's kind of been our theme for these 40
Yeah.
years. God is for you. And so the book was just written out of that's been our mission is to let people
Mm,
know that God is for them, help them discover his purpose for their life.
yes.
And the book is all about my story, our family, and how I got the revelation that God was for me. He wasn't mad
Mm,
at me. He wasn't
yes.
against me. He hadn't
Yes.
left me. He hadn't abandoned me. A lot of people have the wrong picture of God. So
Mm,
hopefully, this book, um, all the endorsements that we have so far, we have about 12 of my good friends doing endorsements
wow.
on it, and they don't know what each other is saying, but most of them are saying this is a great book for a believer and a non believer.
Wow.
And I thought that was awesome that
Yes.
when they read it, they thought, man, this is good for if you're in the community of Christianity, or if you don't know God and maybe you want to know God, it's a
Hmm.
great tool to share with somebody. So it's
Yes.
all about helping people know that God is not against them, God is not mad at them, God is not angry at them, that God loves them, God has a plan for their life, and God is for them.
That is incredible. That I am speechless. I am so looking forward to the book coming out. I don't know if there's a specific date set yet as far as you can share, or if that's still being worked out.
Well, you can pre-order it now. Go to our website, cotr.org, pre-order it now, but it
Yes,
actually will be in the physical form of people can get actually on our Sunday in November when we celebrate our 40th anniversary.
40 years in
Yeah,
November. Yes,
in November.
perfect. I love how intentional you are with everything that you do with the book, with the 40 years of legacy of Church on the Rock, as well as even for small groups. We're also talking about God is for you. And that was being a small group coach, knew that that was coming really since last year. So the intentionality is, I think, is unmatched from anywhere I've seen with different conferences or books I've read. It is remarkable.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that so much. I want to make every day count. Life
Mm,
is precious. Life is a gift. I don't want to waste it. I want to make the most of it, and so we try to be intentional. That
yes.
purpose-driven life. We try to be that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so good. So with being intentional and with the 40 years of legacy at Church on the Rock, what is something that you're looking forward to or looking ahead? 'Cause I know you have a vision. You always are looking forward, as a good leader is, as far as what is next for Church on a Rock, which is for me is kind of hard to say because there's already so much going on at Church on the Rock with Church on COT Espanol being on television here locally as well as in Latin America now. Church on the Rock about to go, maybe already live in Sweden as well. Metaverse Church, but yeah, that so for those who are not part of Rock, there's so much going on already. So just to put that in perspective for this question, as far as what do you feel like is, or what is God leading to you next, and what is next for Church on the Rock?
Great question. Paul, we just want to first of all get better at what we're already doing. Constantly have that mindset of each week. We do AAR reports.
Mm,
We have all of our team, all the departments do an AAR report. After the activity report, we
mm.
got that from the Navy SEALs, and
Oh wow.
so we talk about what we did right, and we talk about what we did wrong, and we talk
Mm,
about how we're going to improve it. We do
mm,
that every week on the service, children's
mm,
ministry, nursery, outreaches, Espanol, television. We're constantly the attitude of improving. So
mm.
we're going to constantly continue to do that, but yet
Yes.
be creative, like you said, with the metaverse. We have VR, virtual reality, our national TV program, like you said, we're on nationally through GEB out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Then we're on
Mm,
locally here. We're on in Puerto
mm,
Rico. Like you said, we just went on in Sweden.
mm.
But also, you'll like this. We just went on in Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh,
Every Sunday
awesome.
morning in Des Moines, Iowa. We just went on
That's
in Palm
exciting.
Springs and the local Fox network. So we're
Wow.
continuing to go, use technology with the
Hmm.
metaverse, with virtual reality, with television, with our live streaming, the services, with all of that. But at the same time, building strong families. Uh,
Mm,
I really believe, our church is to be tri-generational. And I get
mm,
that from the Bible where it talks about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Jacob,
So I think
yes.
our church, if we want to keep moving forward and passing the baton,
Mm-hmm,
that every age group is important, and that
mm-hmm,
we need all three generations. And
mm-hmm,
how can we improve? How can we reach? How can we minister? How can we help all three generations? Now,
mm-hmm,
Paul, we have an analytic company that does analytics for us monthly. They do
mm-hmm,
analytics for us. So we know every month how many people come to Church on the Rock
mm,
by their smartphone when they walk on the campus. It lights
yes.
up on this for this company to let us know, as
Yes.
well when people check in through giving or their children or their nursery or the youth. But
Mm-hmm.
also we know the age group, we know where they
Wow.
shop, we know the clothes they buy, the grocery stores they go to, the movies they go to. So it gives us analytics every month of how can we get better at serving,
Mm-hmm.
helping, reaching more people. For example, one of our team came to me this week and said, Pastor, millennials want help right now with their career. They really want help with their career.
Mm-hmm.
So, see, that's why we have the marketplace ministry.
Yes.
And we're doing a life surge here, big, 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 whatever you want to call it, campaign with all those speakers
Yes.
to help with career. So we're doing all things. This happening life surge is not only on a Saturday, but after that they set up small groups and they
Oh
do
wow.
mentoring for one whole year.
Wow.
So I use that illustration is we want to use every means we can to reach as
Mm-hmm.
many people as we can um, who connect with our mission, who connect
Yes.
with our values, who connect
Yes.
with our heart. And we just bought more property locally. There's a subdivision. We just bought another house.
Mm-hmm.
We're continuing to buy properties around here. We're continuing to
Yes.
upgrade the campus.
Yes.
So I could go on all day, Paul, about where we're going, but we
Yeah.
want to we want to pour into the next generation. I really believe, that it's important. We just launched our internship program.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be doing that every summer.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to go to Puerto Rico here in about 3 weeks. We do a yearly conference there,
Oh, Awaken,
and
right?
we take a part of the team from our church and other churches, and there's over 250 churches represented that we go yearly,
Wow.
training leaders for the island of Puerto.
Yes.
It never stops. It's
Yes.
exciting.
That's really exciting. And you're talking about the Awaken conference, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Awaken. That
Yeah.
is
We sponsor
amazing.
that every year and send a team from the church and then also other churches, and they all come together.
Hmm.
And hundreds of church leaders from Puerto Rico come to that. So we get the privilege to impact that whole island with the good news.
That's phenomenal. I love that. So yeah, that's so much stuff are happening at Church on the Rock, and it's amazing. So I know what you said at the beginning of the summer. There wasn't gonna be a summer slump. It's gonna be a summer jump, and it definitely has been through all the stuff that's been going on at Church on the Rock, and all the stuff that is coming as well. It is so great.
So Paul, you're a small group coach.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. I'm excited. That's starting up here in a few weeks.
Yeah, starting up in a few weeks. I think September 17th is the
Yeah.
first day for that. So getting geared up, um, recruiting different people to lead small groups. I'm going to be leading a small group in addition to coaching as well. So I'm
That's
excited.
awesome.
It's going to be
Thank
good.
you so much for doing that. You know, you're impacting. You're making a difference, aren't you, Paul?
Yes, you gave me the opportunity. You gave us as leaders an opportunity to impact and really to share the message and hope of Church on Rock, because I know from what you were saying and from what the numbers just said that a lot of people who join small groups are not a part of Church on the Rock, but they get tapped in from that. So I think it's an amazing outreach.
Wow, it's awesome. And then, Paul, we have Celebrate Recovery, that
Hmm.
ministry that meets every Thursday night. And then they have small groups for teenagers all the way up to seniors all through the week. And it's amazing, how that ministry has helped so many people, especially after COVID, with the
Hmm.
emotional, you talked about your father with emotional teaching on emotional intelligence and whatever.
Yes.
There's so many people who need help right now emotionally, and
Hmm.
Celebrate Recovery is just exploding. And then I didn't know if you knew, we launched again our prison ministry,
Oh,
and
I didn't
we
realize
we
that.
had a large prison ministry
Yeah.
locally, but when COVID happened, we couldn't go in. Well, here
Hmm.
about 2 months ago, they let us come back in, and we're
Wow.
reaching more people in prison now than we ever have locally.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I was not aware of that. That's amazing. I'm
That's
happy to
so
hear that.
awesome. So
But
what
oh, go
books,
ahead.
Paul? What books have you read that one or two books that's really impacted your life?
Yes. The first one that comes to mind is the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which I know you've talked about it a few times. But really, I think whether you feel like you're a leader or not, it is absolutely necessary to begin with the end in mind. I talk about that just to make sure that when you're doing something, you have a goal or where you want it to go. Having that vision as a leader is absolutely critical. And then I think either step four or step five, I can't remember, thinking win win. Because if you're thinking lose win or win lose, I think for whatever reason, I think us as Christians have a tendency to think lose win is good, as far as we think we're being humble or putting ourselves lower, but you're not living up to your potential and where God wants you to be, and just to allow someone else to win and yourself are losing in the process. But having that win-win mentality is what you need to have. I think that's critical.
That's so good. I love that win-win. That's so good.
Thank you, thank you. And then pretty much anything by John Maxwell. I know you, John is a friend of yours, and
Um,
I'm also a Maxwell Leadership certified speaker and coach, and
Great.
so yeah, and so whether it's the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, from the law of the lid to law of navigation, all the different laws, to what I tell people is if you're early on in your leadership journey, to read Developing the Leader Within You 2.0, because he rewrote that, and I think it just it really walks you through step by step, as far as even, and the chapters really build upon each other. Which the first one we've been talking about being intentional, and that's really the first chapter about that, and then going to self awareness and um, your character, leading from within, and the hardest person to lead is yourself. And before you can lead others, you need to lead yourself.
Wow, Paul. I didn't know that. I had all the interns read Develop the Leader Within by John
Oh.
Maxwell. That was a requirement for um, years ago. I had a mentor of mine who lived in San Diego
Hmm.
when John Maxwell was pastoring a church, a Wesleyan church in San Diego. And this friend of mine, who was a mentor who lived in San Diego, said, "You've got to meet John Maxwell. You two guys got to get together." So
Yeah.
I went out and bought his book, Developing
Hmm.
the Leader Within, the first one. I
Yeah.
still have it hardback.
Yes.
And we were in Branson and on vacation, Missouri, and the boys were real small. I can still remember, talk about life changing moments. I can still remember sitting around the pool, reading that book on developing the leader within.
Hmm.
Absolutely changed my life.
Hmm.
Absolutely it was a turning point in my life. And
Yes.
out of that, then, you've heard me tell the story of how I saw him in Kansas City, went to San Diego to see him, and he's been to our church. He's been to our marketplace ministry, spoke for me. And what an amazing ministry he has. And I'm so glad that you're one of the coaches. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yes, yeah, it's just to be in that community, and really it all started from Church on the Rock with the growth and development that I was able to have from when I was 5 years old in Kids on the Rock to now, like back then for me saying being in the big kids service on Sunday mornings, or yeah, so it's just
Wow.
continuing to learn and grow, but also to apply what you share about as well, and to be a doer of the word and to read God's word. It's really easy to sit back and just because there's a lot, you share a lot of amazing things that can be applied, but it's kind of like the Dead Sea, that if I just keep taking it in, keep taking it in, eventually it just will cause me to be oversaturated, and
Yeah.
if I don't give it out and give out of the cup that's being poured in, then that brings much more life and more development. So I'm just grateful and thankful for your ministry, what you and Pastor Kim have been able to build over the last 40 years, and to continue to grow and to look forward. So, because I've been able to go to different churches over the last several years, and every time I go to a different church, I always say that nothing compares to Church on the Rock.
Thank you, Paul. That means a lot. Appreciate that.
Yes. Well, we're almost out of time, but is there anything that you haven't talked about yet, or about you, or about Church on the Rock, that you want people to know?
I don't think so, Paul, other than, we've already covered it. We just want everybody to know that God's a good God. God has a plan for their life. God is for them.
Mhm.
And that's the big idea of the day, I believe, for me.
Yes, absolutely. To remember that God is for you. I love that. But I want to make sure people know how to connect with you as well as Church on the Rock. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. If you can share the different ways that they can connect, and I'll make sure for those who are listening, you'll hear it. It'll be in the show notes on YouTube. You'll see it come across the screen.
Thank you, Paul. Basically, real simple. They just go to God is for You Experience on YouTube, and there they can discover a lot of the things that we're doing.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, for those who are listening or watching, if you're just listening, you should watch as well. It's a lot better experience to watch. But I hope you learned a lot from Pastor's story, from where he started as a youth pastor in Ames, Iowa, was there a couple of years, had the vision for Church on the Rock. And I still think it's remarkable that you were able to see this vision 40 years ago, and it's come to fruition now, and learn about overcoming obstacles, developing the right habits, just the importance of connecting with the right people. And we didn't necessarily talk about it explicitly, but we discussed it as far as the words that you say and what you're thinking about yourself is really key as well.
So true. So true. We gave a lot of resources too, didn't we, Paul?
Yes, there are a lot of resources, and I'll make sure all of those are linked in as well. But Pastor, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being on the Incredible Leadership. You shared a lot of information about how to grow as a leader, what you've done as a leader so far. I know there's several parallels to what you do in the church, to what people do in the business realm, from what you were talking about, the after action reports that you learn from the Navy SEALs and continue to grow and develop. It's phenomenal. There's a lot of gems that people can take from this. I hope they caught them.
Thank you so much, Paul.
All right. Thank you. And for everyone else, keep being incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.